For the very first time in a long time, we're going to kick this off talking about the Jets. Yes, the Jets who have fired a coach, have fired a GM, and need to fire Aaron Rodgers. That's where we're going because he's a washed king. There's another washed king we're going to talk about later in the pod. But for right now, we're going to talk about this washed king. At one point in time, Aaron Rodgers was a king. There are some that have him on the Mount Rushmore of QBs. There are some that will tell you he's the greatest quarterback of all time. What you're witnessing every Sunday at MetLife playing quarterback for the New York Jets is not the greatest quarterback of all time. It's not the quarterback that is on a lot of people's Mount Rushmore. You're watching a washed up version of potentially the greatest quarterback of all time, of a QB that belongs on the Mount Rushmore. The New York Jets are one move away from tearing it all down to the studs. And I applaud them for understanding that they played the player empowerment game and they tricked it off. The best thing you could do is not only acknowledge your wins, but acknowledge your losses. Acknowledge when it's not working. The worst thing you can do is to admit some of your faults, but not all of your faults. And especially when it comes to this sports thing where you talk about business and you talk about the emotions, which is your fan base, it is hard to admit to your fan base you fucked up because that can potentially affect your business, can potentially affect your bottom line. The Jets have done most of the dirty work. There's still one last move left. It's like the Kobe meme. Job's not done. Job's not done. Job's not finished. This is what they have to do. There's one more move left, and that is to get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Yes, I know there's 5 games left. Why would you jettison a future Hall of Famer in Aaron Rodgers with 5 games left? Because what are you going to get from Aaron Rodgers over those last 5 games that you haven't seen over the last year and a half? Yes, you got robbed last year. 4 snaps in, Achilles done. We understand all of that. But the fact is that this year, this was supposed to be the redo. This was supposed to be the re-up. This was supposed to be the do-over. And the only thing they've done is looked piss poor in every aspect of the game. When the defense is good, the offense is putrid. The handful of times the offense shows up, the defense has been putrid. And that's why everyone got to go. It's a bad fit. So yes, Robert Saleh was overmatched. He is more of a coordinator as opposed to a head coach. He proved that over his tenure here. The best thing you know about Robert Saleh is that he runs the steps in pregame. He runs the steps of the stadium in pregame. That's the only thing you know in regards to his prowess as a head coach. So yes, getting rid of Robert Saleh, the right thing to do. Joe Douglas there, that's a different story to me because he picked a lot of these players. He drafted very well. Free agency, less so. But in terms of drafting, he drafted his ass off with this team. And there's a real good core nucleus here that is largely built off the back of Joe Douglas's drafting. Now, while that would normally make him get a contract extension, the reason why Joe Douglas had to go is because he was part of the regime that handed the keys to Aaron Rodgers. You played in the dirty waters that is player empowerment, and you not only got dirtied, you got sullied. And you dragged that dirt with you throughout MetLife. And the fact of the matter is that you entrusted a 39-year-old QB who, yes, was coming off back-to-back MVPs and a storied career. And you expected that to continue, even though your franchise doesn't know how to win. Green Bay has a history of winning. They won before Aaron Rodgers, and as we have seen, they have won after Aaron Rodgers. There is a culture of winning and doing things by their own design that works. The Jets have been a poverty franchise my entire life. Even those 2 years with Mark Sanchez where they got to back-to-back AFC championship games, they were still the same old Jets. We all knew that was fool's gold. The Jets have been a poverty franchise my entire life. They do not know how to win. They do not know how to sustain a culture of winning. And yet you expected Aaron Rodgers to walk in with this pedigree, with this acumen, with this resume that is a one of one. and expected everything to be flipped right upside down in MetLife just because of the mere presence of Aaron Rodgers. And that's why that whole regime has to go. And that's also why Aaron Rodgers himself has to go. Because once you hand someone the keys and they show you that they can drive, you got to take them keys away. We all have folks in our families that are getting older. And one of the main things you have to worry about is that person still trying to drive? You can't have grandma out here 80 plus still trying to drive. Now, back in the day, she might be able to whip it. She might be able to do them cross-country road trips, and she used to thug it out. But now she's 80 plus. Now going to the corner store is an ordeal. Now she's got the blinker on, and she's not aware that the blinker is on. And she's just riding up and down the block with all her blinkers on. Sometimes you have to collectively come together as a family and decide to take those keys away from grandma. What the New York Jets are trying to do is it time to take the keys away from Aaron Rodgers. He is washed. It's over. It's a wrap. Fini. But how did we get here? Why is Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh gone, and Aaron Rodgers still here? Because the Jets are such a poverty franchise that even when they do 2/3 of the job, they still find a way to trick it off because they're scared to do that last third. And that last third is to get Aaron Rodgers up out of here. Now, you can tell me, well, Sam, there's only 5 games left. Let him cook. It's fine. It doesn't really matter in the long run. That's where you're wrong. It does matter. Draft positioning is available. You might be able to get your way up into the top 3 or the top 5 to where you can get one of these young QBs that's coming into the league and at least have a full reset where you have a new coach, a new GM, and a new franchise QB all in one fell swoop. So that's why you can't let Aaron Rodgers just continue to play these last 5 games like those 5 games don't matter, because they do. For draft positioning, sending a signal to future GM candidates, future coaching candidates that we are for real, we're tearing it down to the studs. We don't even want Aaron around these parts no more. The Giants, another New York team. They're doing it backwards from the Jets. They got rid of the QB, but allegedly they're not trying to get rid of the coach and the GM. When the coach and the GM are more at fault than the QB that they just jettisoned. So both New York teams are poverty franchises in different ways. Both of them are afraid to do the right thing, which is a full tear down to the studs. They're trying to retool instead of rebuild. You, the New York Giants, you, the New York Jets, you need a rebuild. You're not retooling. You're not just tinkering with something that's almost done. Neither one of you are done. Neither one of you are close to being done. The Giants had a foolhardy playoff run with the easiest schedule in the league that I was screaming for the mountaintops about. I got called a hater. I got called someone that doesn't know football. And the fact of the matter is the Giants went there and they even won a playoff game. Only for what to happen the next year, in the year after that, they dropped back down to mediocrity. They dropped back down to being a poverty franchise. That one playoff year, Daboll's first year, they looked better. Daniel Jones is not fumbling and stumbling and bumbling all over the place. Turnovers come way down. But they took advantage of a piss-poor schedule and even beat a fraudulent Vikings team on the road in the first round. And then everybody got re-upped. Daniel Jones got 80 M's. Now, they told you it was 160 M's, and I told you then he was never going to get $160 million. And it turned out your boy, again, was right because he only got 51% of that bread guaranteed. But back to your Jets. Let's go ahead and get into the screen in regards to what we're looking at with Aaron Rodgers and this Jets organization. Aaron Rodgers was recently asked if the Jets ownership has been publicly supportive of the head coach and GM, a subject he discussed in broad terms the other day on Your Man's McAfee. Is that a rhetorical question? Like I said, I've cited an example that I've seen in the Lions. There were probably examples over the years in Green Bay, but I think it's an important part of ownership to hire the right guys, set the vision, and then support them when the outside world is trying to tear him down. He was asked again, has Johnson, as in Woody Johnson, owner of the Jets, has Woody Johnson been publicly supportive? Rodgers responds, I'd have to look. I don't follow a lot of stuff. That's a lie. I'd have to ask you guys, has there been a lot of public comments, supportive comments? The reporters, only firings. Aaron Rodgers, yeah. So there's your answer. What he's mentioning in Green Bay, what he's mentioning in Detroit, that he's leaving out, is that I always try to come on here and talk about talent matters more so than coaching, more so than organizations. I still feel that way. However, GMs are paid to pick that talent. Coaches are paid to harness that talent and to instruct that talent and put that talent in the best position to win. All three phases need to work for a team to succeed. The talent has to be top tier, the GM has to be top tier, and the coaching has to be top tier. Everybody's got to do their job for this machine to work. When it comes down to it, the Jets had piss poor coaching, had inadequate GMing outside of the draft. The draft, I'll give Douglas his props on, but in terms of free agency and one, handing the keys to Aaron Rodgers, who has shown no acumen in building a team. All those teams, we can now say it without a doubt, all those teams, the team's success in Green Bay, as if the proof of, Favre wasn't there. And now we see it currently with Jordan Love. This is under different regimes, by the way. It's not like they've had the same GM the entire time from Favre to now Jordan Love. But we can, without a doubt, there is a culture of winning in how football games should be won in Green Bay. Detroit with Brad Holmes. There are things that I want to say about Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes has done such a good job. Dan Campbell's getting the credit, a lot of the credit for this rebuild in Detroit. And it's a rebuild. Let's not play no games. That was a full-on rebuild. But what Holmes has done in Detroit is it should be studied. It's a masterclass in GMing. If you want to get into what a GM is, if you want to get into what scouting is and the prowess and knowing how to pick players and knowing how to build a team, you need to follow what Holmes has done and is continuing to do in Detroit. Get the trenches right on both sides, then build out. Football is not this difficult. They want you to believe football and all the stuff you have to think about and consider, and it's moving at a fast pace, and it's ever-changing, ever-evolving. Football is not that smart. Football is not that complex. You build inside out. You start with your trenches on both sides of the ball, and you build out. It's a game of physicality. Whereas the game is most physical in the trenches. You win in the trenches, it's easier to win everywhere else. It's a trickle-down effect. Give me a less talented team, but the advantage up front in the trenches, I will take that over a team of just stars. But they don't got nothing on the line. They don't got nothing on the line. I will take my less talented team and run the ball down your throat and control the clock and control and limit your team's possessions and win the game. More times than not, I'm going to get that dub. Aaron Rodgers thought he could bring some of that Green Bay magic, that Green Bay culture with him to the Jets. He has failed. And the Jets failed in handing him the keys without no real prior knowledge of Aaron Rodgers having that type of skill set to begin with. What move in Green Bay happened because of Aaron Rodgers' say so. What move? Was he in the draft room? No. Did it get free agents to go there? No. What move did Aaron Rodgers do that made the New York Jets say, you know what? Hand him the keys. He's our Braun. He's our Melo. He's our Kobe. He's our Mahomes. What moves did Aaron Rodgers do? When was the last time the best free agent ever in the history of that franchise is still Reggie White? And now that predates Aaron Rodgers. What free agent went there and cites Aaron Rodgers as the reason why he went there and they won a chip because of it? Poverty franchise, your New York Jets. But this Aaron Rodgers thing, he needs to go. I have some sound here. A media member asked Aaron Rodgers if anyone in the Jets organization has told him that they want him back going into next year. This was his response.
Exactly. If you play, you want to play here. Has anybody?
I said this would be my first choice. Yes.
Yeah. So this would be. Has anybody here? I don't even know who it would be since they don't know who the coach or GM is. Has anybody from here said yes? We'd like you to play here.
A lot of people have, yeah. Not
a lot of people have. Now, remember, this is the same guy that said he was immunized when it came to being vaxxed. Okay, it's the same guy that said, you know, he was asked a direct question, are you vaccinated? And the man's he got a 180 on us and said, I'm immunized. So this that same guy. So when he says, yeah, a lot of people have. Who are these people? Are they concessions people? Who are these people?
the people who are making those decisions. But there'll be the conversation at some point. And listen, if they say they want to move on, that's great. Fantastic, you know?
If they say they want to move on, great. That's fantastic. Well, but yeah, because you already got your bread. You already got your bread. So he doesn't matter. Aaron Rodgers does not matter. The year was last year. Yes, last year was supposed to be the year. If you were going to get the apex of whatever the Aaron Rodgers experience was going to be, it was supposed to be last year. 4 snaps in, that all blows up. Now you're trying to recoup whatever you can because you had to trick it off all last year. Now you're trying to recoup whatever you can and try to build it out for this one last year that's truly one last dance. And he's been piss poor. And the team's been piss poor. Garrett Wilson hasn't looked the same. Sauce Gardner hasn't looked the same. Like the guys that we thought that were now going to become household names because they're playing with Aaron Rodgers have now diminished from even where they were when Zach Wilson was the QB. That's the most telling tale of all, is that Garrett Wilson's no longer thought of being that upper tier. And he still may very well be. But nothing over the last 2 years has made me consider Garrett Wilson to still be top tier. He looked more top tier with Zach Wilson than he does with Aaron Rodgers. That's a statement none of us thought we would be saying 2 years into this Aaron Rodgers experiment. And Sauce Gardner, when do y'all want to have that conversation? Let me know. It won't be today. We don't have to have it today. But at some point in the very near future, we're going to have that Sauce Gardner conversation. Okay? But more of Aaron Rodgers talking. In regards to explaining why he thinks he should be back, he makes it very clear. He just redid his house in Jersey, so that's why he should be back as a New York Jets QB next year.
Yeah, I mean, I just redid my house here in Jersey, so my goal was to play a few more years here, but we'll see. Yeah, I'd like to be healthy. I'd like to end on my feet, and then I'd like to play well, and I'd like, to feel like I'm wanted back. If not, that's, again, I will not be offended. I won't be upset. I'll be so thankful.
He will be offended.
Happens here. But, I got to be healthy mentally, physically, and then there's got to be interest on both sides. And if that's not the case, then I'll look at other options.
There should be no interest for the Jets after this year. There is no way that a new head coach and a new GM worth a damn. Now, you can just find anybody. But a new head coach and a new GM worth a damn is going to walk in there and say, oh, yeah, let's bring back Aaron Rodgers for year 41. Year 41 of Aaron Rodgers, yeah, let's go ahead and sign up for that. And pay the bread he's going to want at that level. Because, again, you're paying a guy with diminishing returns. Nothing over the last year, obviously, 4 snaps in, his body breaks. Now he's finally healthy, and his body, his mind, and his arm all look to be broken. What head coach and GM combination are going to walk in there and say, you know what? Let's run this Aaron Rodgers thing back. Let's run it back one more again. Like, no, that's just not going to happen. So while there should be no interest, none whatsoever, from anyone in the Jets organization into bringing Aaron Rodgers back. He can quote concessions guys. He can quote, security guys all he wants. But the people that matter, like he said, the people that matter, no one that makes the important decisions has told me they want me back. They need to hold firm on that. Because this man should not be a New York Jet next year. He should not. And don't you find it curious that Aaron Rodgers has all this stuff going on, and it's on the cusp of a documentary on Netflix dropping about Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers, the documentary Enigma, is going to be dropping in Netflix later on this month, December 17th, right? In this documentary, Aaron Rodgers talks about how his controversial takes have cost him family and friends. Now, that seems like a headline. That seems like something that would make people feel empathetic or sympathetic for Aaron Rodgers. Here's the problem. Before all these, innocuous takes, weird takes, awkward takes, out-the-box conspiracy-led takes, his own mama and brother didn't rock with him. So what more family have you lost since then, Aaron? When was it? His brother was trying to do The Bachelor or something, or was one of them dating shows, and it came out then that, yeah, we don't really rock with Aaron. Like, we don't fuck with Aaron. Like, Aaron is way out there. That was in the 2010s. That was discount double check Aaron Rodgers. Now you're talking about you've even lost even more family members. Can you imagine the Thanksgiving table with Aaron Rodgers, who has already ostracized his own mama and his brother? And you're the remaining family members, and Aaron Rodgers comes in there and with a camera crew, because of course every athlete has to have a camera crew because everything is content now. And he gets to denying Sandy Hook at Thanksgiving. It's your man's. This is the man who the Jets handed the keys to. This is the man who the Jets decided change our culture of winning just by being here, just by being present, just by putting on our uniform, change the culture. A man that denies Sandy Hook. Yet another example of why the New York Jets are a poverty franchise.